Today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and I am a quarter Choctaw. So, in celebration of that, or remembrance of that, I should say, I'd like to read a letter written by George W. Harkins, a chief of the Choctaw Nation. He lived during the Indian Removal Act, and yeah, so this is a letter in direct response to the Trail of Tears. So without further ado, here we go. To the American people, it is with considerable diffidence that I attempt to address the American people, knowing and feeling sensibly my incompetency, and believing that your highly and well improved minds would not be well entertained by the address of a Choctaw. But having determined to emigrate west of the Mississippi River this fall, I have thought proper in bidding you farewell to make a few remarks expressive of my views, and the feelings that actuate me on the subject of our removal. Believing that our all is at stake, and knowing that you readily sympathize with the distress of every country, I confidently throw myself upon your indulgence to ask you to listen patiently. I do not arrogate myself to the prerogative of deciding upon the expediency of the late treaty, yet I feel bound as a Choctaw to give a distinct expression of my feelings on that interesting and to the Choctaw all important subject. We were hedged in by two evils, and we chose that which we thought the least. Yet we could not recognize the right that the state of Mississippi had assumed to legislate for us. Although the legislator of the state were qualified to make laws for their own citizens, that did not qualify them to become lawmakers to a people that were so dissimilar in manners and customs as the Choctaws are to the Mississippians. Admitting that they understood the people, that could they remove that mountain of prejudice that has ever obstructed the streams of justice, and prevent their salutary influence from reaching my devoted countrymen. We as Choctaws rather choose to suffer and be free than live under the degrading influence of laws which our voice could not be heard in their formation. Much as the state of Mississippi has wronged us, I cannot find it in my heart any other sentiment than an ardent wish for her prosperity and happiness. I could cheerfully hope that those of another age and generation may not feel the effects of those oppressive measures that have been so illiberally dealt out to us, and that peace and that happiness may be their reward. Amid the gloom and horrors of the present separation, we are cheered with a hope that ere long we shall reach our destined land, and that nothing short of the basest acts of treachery will ever be able to wrest it from us, and that we may live free. Although your ancestors won freedom on the field of danger and glory, our ancestors owned it as a birthright, or as their birthright. And we have had to purchase it from you as the vilest slaves by their freedom. Yet it is said that our present movements are our own voluntary acts. Such is not the case. We found ourselves like a benighted stranger following false guides, until he was surrounded on every side with fire and water. The fire was certain destruction, and a feeble hope was left him of escaping by water. A distant view of the opposite shore encourages the hope to remain would be inevitable annihilation. Who would hesitate, or would say that his plunging into the water was his own voluntary act? Painful in the extreme is the mandate of our expulsion. We regret that it should proceed from the mouth of our professed friend, for whom our blood was commingled with that of his bravest warriors on the field of danger and death. But such is the instability of professions. The man who said that he would plant a stake and draw the line around us that never should be passed was the first to say he could not guard the lines. He drew up the stake and wiped out all traces of the line. I will not conceal from you my fears that the present grounds may be removed. I have my foreboding. Who of us can tell after witnessing what has already been done what the next force may be? I ask you in the name of justice, for repose for myself and for my injured people, let us alone. We will not harm you. We want rest. We hope in the name of justice that another outrage may never be committed against us, and that we may for the future be cared for as children and not driven about as beasts, which are benefited by a change of pasture. Taking an example from the American government, and knowing the happiness which its citizens enjoy under the influence of mild republican institutions, it is the intention of our countrymen to form a government assimilated to that of our white brethren in the United States, clearly as nearly as their condition will permit. We know that in order to protect the rights and secure the liberties of the people, no government approximates so nearly to perfection as to one to which we have alluded. As east of the Mississippi we have been friends, so west we will cherish the same feelings with additional fervor, and although we may be removed into the desert, still we shall look with fond regard upon those who have promised us their protection. Let that feeling be reciprocated. Friends, my attachment to my native land was strong. That cord is now broken, and we must go forth as wanderers in a strange land. I must go. Let me entreat you to regard us with feelings of kindness, and when the hand of oppression is stretched against us, let me hope that every part of the United States, filling the mountains and the valleys, will echo and say, "Stop, you have no power. We are the sovereign people, and our friends will no more be disturbed. We ask you for nothing that is incompatible with your other duties. We go forth sorrowful, knowing that wrong has been done. Will you extend to us your sympathizing regards until all traces of disagreeable oppositions are obliterated, and we again shall have confidence in the professions of our white brethren? Here is the land of our progenitors, and here are their bones. They left them as a sacred deposit, and we have been compelled to venerate its trust. I must go. It is dear to us, yet we cannot stay. My people are dear to me. With them I must go. Could I stay and forget them and leave them to struggle alone, unaided, unfriended, and forgotten by our great father? I should then be unworthy of the name of a Choctaw, and be a disgrace to my blood. I must go with them. My destiny is cast among the Choctaw people. If they suffer, so will I. If they prosper, then I will rejoice. Let me again ask you to regard us with feelings of kindness." Wow, that one hits hard. Um, like I said, that was a letter that he wrote in response to the Trail of Tears, the Indian Removal Act. Um, man, it gets me every time I read it. I can't get over the fact that even though the the United States government, the president that is alluded to there, by the way, is Andrew Jackson. He's the one that signed the Indian Removal Act in 1830. Um, it Even though all of that negative stuff was happening, they were the mentality of my Choctaw forefathers during that time was still friendship and regard us, regard us in a good light. We do not have any ill will against you. We just want to be able to live peacefully. We want rest. We're done fighting. We don't want none. We don't want no more issues. We just want to live our lives in peace. We will go to this new land freely. They were, and to specifically say that they are praying for the prosperity of the nation that, or the country that is doing these horrible things to them, after those very same people swore that they would let my people live in peace. Um, Makes me quite proud to call myself a Choctaw. For a very long time, I was, they say that the whitewashing of Native people ended back in the 1900s, and no, it hasn't. Because I was raised, dancing in the drum circles, and I even got to beat the drum a few times, and eating fry bread and going to powwows, and I grew up in the native culture. Like I really did. And as I got older, my skin, because I'm not exactly a dark skinned native, I'm pretty pale and all that compared to a lot, and my hair isn't exactly the darkest and whatever. A lot of people told me, "Oh, you're not a native. You're white. You're too white to wear your hair in braids and blah blah blah." So I fell away from it, and I basically got whitewashed, just like it happened back in the early 1900s and before. The For the longest time, I wanted to have long hair, and I was told, no, you can't have long hair. You're not native enough, and blah blah blah. So in a lot of ways, I was whitewashed, just like everybody, just like my ancestors, and I lost a lot of it, and I'm gaining it back, and I'm proud to say that. My hair being long, originally when I started growing it out, it was just as a symbol of my faith. Before I came back to being a Christian, I would almost always kept my hair cut really, really short. So, as a testament to my faith in Jesus, I grew out my hair like he did. And now looking into my native heritage, I'm finding out that my native ancestors were actually referred to as the long hairs. And that's also why I got this lock right here, is they would have one long lock in front of their right ear, and that's how you would spot the Choctaw people, or men, or whatever. So little things like that, I was quick to embrace, because it's my people. That the Choctaw Nation could easily be called the children of Choctaw. That was the Choctaw Nation and the Chickasaw people stem from two brothers, Choctaw and Chickasaw. They were one people in the beginning, and then they split up at the end of their journey. It's a whole thing, but Choctaw is my ancestor. Our people stem from him. And then obviously his brother Chickasaw became the progenitor of the Chickasaw people. So they're fun little historical fact for you. But I'm learning to re-embrace my native heritage, and the long hair. When once it's long enough, I'm gonna start braiding it. So that's really cool. And it's even in my own native heritage, I can still see God at work. Like it said that for the Choctaw people to get to our homeland, the God came and gave our forefathers a pole, and they would put the pole in the ground, or a holy man anyway, and he would put the pole in the ground, and they would go to bed, and then when they woke up, whatever way the pole was leaning, they would go that way. And they followed the pole west. It always pointed west, and it did this for 40 years. 40 years. That sound familiar? And at the end of that 40 years, they came to the region of Mississippi, Louisiana, that kind of area. And that became the homeland of the Choctaw people. And then they lived there up until about 1830, which is when they got forced over to the Oklahoma territories, or the Indian territories, which is now the Oklahoma state general area. And one other thing that makes me so proud and stoked to call myself a Choctaw, a child of the Choctaw Nation, is our history goes back well over 10,000 years. Like, we have a cultural memory of great animals of the Ice Age, like mammoths, for example. Like, we lived alongside them, and we've actually found, what is it, the paleontological evidence or whatever. Like, we found humans living alongside, like, in the North Americas, we found humans living alongside the great animals of the last ice age, which immediately tells me that, hey, I was probably right about Genesis 1 being a sequel to, or Genesis 2 being a sequel to Genesis 1. You know, how there's actually two creations of man. You've got mankind as a whole in Genesis 1, and then that branch of mankind started by Adam in Genesis 2. So that was really cool, because that Adam happened supposedly somewhere about 6,000 years ago, if we go by the calculation from the Bible. That's roughly where we figured it would be. So anyways, so yeah, as you can see, I get just as fired up about my native heritage as I do about my Christian heritage. So yeah, I'm going to keep looking that up, and I really hope that if you guys have any sort of native heritage yourself, look into it. It will do you so much good in the long run. Trust me, you want to look into your native heritage. And remember, I'm only a quarter, or not even quite that much. So if if you're native, you're native. Doesn't matter if you've got a drop in you or you're full-blooded. Native is native. If you have a tribe, learn your history, learn your culture, and please embrace it. And lastly, I have to see so many resemblances between the stories that you see in the Bible and the history of my own people. The Choctaw people they've been through so many of the same things, and they have so many of the same core beliefs as the people in the Bible, and it blows my mind that the similarities are so drastically clear, and it doesn't take much research at all to figure that out. It's just it's mind blowing. It really is. Nothing new under the stars, I guess. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this special video. It's definitely a break from what I usually do, and I like it. I'm gonna try and start doing um, some more, different stuff, not just the figuring out the Bible. Though, speaking of figuring out the Bible, regular uploads will resume tomorrow. Um, I had some things to sort out to continue that, and yeah, so look forward to that tomorrow, 9 a.m. It'll be great. It'll be huge. Um, sorry. Anyways, adios.